it might not be the most eloquent segue, but that might be a good spot to start talking about Emilia
Yeah.
Perez.
Oh no, we're just gonna. I can feel the gears in the car, just rattling about.
Just grinding to a halt.
Hello, very nice to meet you. I'd like to know about sex change operation.
I see. Men to woman, or woman to men.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
I'm having penis to vagina surgery, Clarice.
Zach,
I see.
Sarah?
I don't know if you saw my text yesterday when I was at work. Excuse me. Now I'm going back and tried to look. Did I not?
Those gears are getting louder.
Sorry. I don't remember. Now I'm thinking I texted the wrong person. But like, how would I have texted the wrong person? No, I didn't. No, I texted you and you responded. About Johann Sacre Bleu.
Yeah. What were you?
Well, no, I just did. I was gonna put it up.
You
Also acknowledge the text message. So about it.
Awesome.
But I just think we should talk about that, even though we haven't watched it yet. I think beautiful creation that needs to be spoken about.
Yeah, I tried to watch it. It's there's no English subtitles available.
I know.
I basically just got the sense that they were calling French people stinky and trying to be as tone deaf in their French representation or more than Mexico is represented in Emilia Perez.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, this is like the Mexican musical short film,
yes.
right? That's like about Paris. Yeah. I skimmed through that. It was clearly like a labor of love, or I guess spite, right?
Yeah, labor of spite for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, all power to them, because like Emilia Perez is kind of like a middle finger.
Yeah.
Right. What a just ugly movie Emilia Perez is. And like I don't want to jump into general thoughts or whatever too quick, but like that. I really think that Emilia Perez is one of the worst films of last year.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's just like so tasteless, right? Like it's just such a. There's no consideration for the way that it handles its themes. The structure is all wrong, and the musical elements just feel like such a waste.
The musical elements are so bad it made me.
No, I think they're one. I think penis to vagina was 100% needed.
If the whole movie was that, then I'd be with you there, right? but then you've got like the next scene where it's like they're in Tel Aviv and they're just like sitting across from each other at a desk, singing monotone. It's like
I hated that scene.
Right? Like it's so...
That was one of the worst scenes of the whole fucking movie. You change the body, you change the soul. If you change the soul, you change society. If you change society, you change the soul again. I couldn't keep track.
It's all in like this gray room, right? Like there's no contrast whatsoever. There's no consideration for like style or approach, right? There are decisions, right? There is stylistic flair in choices, right? But there's no specificity. It feels so garbled and all over the place. And like the location sound recording for the musical sequences, right? Being able to hear like the breaths of air and like the closeness to the camera, right? I think that stuff actually ruins a lot of the vocal performance.
Yeah, the Selena Gomez number specifically was like really bad. Like the vocals were just like like compressed in a trash compactor or something.
Talk about an actress just being left out to dry, because like I don't think that Selena Gomez is an untalented actress. She has definitely been great in roles before.
Yeah, like
right?
Wizards of Waverly Place.
An icon, right? She was every week consistently getting laughs,
The
But,
classic.
you know, she
From that one guy on the laugh track.
you know, I had some vague familiarity with Wizards of Waverly Place. You know, I was not a massive head, like I'm not huge on the Wizards of Waverly Place lore.
Yeah,
But
me neither.
you know, I am a big fan of Spring Breakers. You know,
Oh yeah, Harmony.
Oh
Korine.
my
You know-
god.
that is a great film, and so is and she was great in The Dead Don't Die, a movie that I didn't really like. You know, I think that's probably my least favorite Jim Jarmusch movie, but she was very funny in it.
I never got around to that one. I didn't know she popped up in there.
It's a big ensemble cast, right? And she's actually like she's a part of a ensemble with Austin Butler, and like every line she has is just hilarious, and she's delivering it like deadpan, right? Meanwhile, with Emilia Perez, right, she's got that scene where she's talking about how she misses the feeling of having sex with them. Like, you miss the
My
the feeling
pussy
of-
hurts
Yeah, exactly.
when I think
right?
of you.
No, but from what I heard, her Spanish in that scene was horrible because she chose to say vulva and not like a slang word.
I noticed that.
And everyone just like, yeah, no one would fucking say that.
She's using like clinical terminology for
Volvita.
Yes,
it's so ridiculous. And like, you know, her singing and her songs, her whole character's arc, right? Just she has nothing to do. She's aimless, and then when she has to become the villain, it's like, why, right? But the central problem with Emilia Perez for me is that the titular character doesn't feel front and center enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
shouldn't Emilia Perez be the protagonist of this film? Why is Zoe Saldana even a character in this movie?
Yeah, I don't know. Like it insists on focusing so much on her, but then in the same breath, like, is trying to convince us that that the POV character is not the main character and that it's Emilia Perez.
I know that the director, he kind of pitched this as like an opera, right? Like, it was originally intended to be that way. And, you know, there is that trope in operas where you can have a titular character or a character of focus who's like everyone's kind of talking around, right? And I feel like they're trying to do that in Emilia Perez. But the problem is that Zoe Saldana's character is the most active, right? And she's like the middleman in this whole situation. And really, she stops having her own interior goals halfway through the movie. Like, she just is at the whims of this falling out between Emilia Perez and Selena Gomez. And then we're supposed to feel like this, like Emilia Perez's identity is always linked to who they once were as the gang leader rather than who they are trying to be, right? We are always hearing about how Perez is doing all of these things to end gang violence now, but we don't see her in the trenches of doing that, right? She's always at dinner parties. She's always, you know,
Doing a photo
like,
op.
yeah, exactly, right? We don't actually see her doing that aside from like a scene where she gets out of a car, right? And yet we focus so much on what she was doing when she was a gang member and then how that stuff is brought back in the end of the film. I feel like if we're talking about like trans identity, right? And again, like, I'm a straight guy, whatever, I'm a cis, right? Who am I to talk about these topics, right? But at the same time, like, I feel like if we're always going back to who they once were.
Well, who
right?
is Jack
And-
Audiard to talk about it? If he can, you
Right?
can too.
That's where I'm coming from, right? And I feel like the fact that it's reducing the trans character back to who they were pre-transition rather than who they're trying to be now, right? And how their trans identity is only celebrated in like a myth sense, right? Like the people understood who Emilia Perez were, but everyone who knew what happened behind the scenes, right, understood that they had this like falling out that. And reconciliation, right, with Gomez at the end, where it's revealed that they once were the gang member, right? And I feel like in a different, you could still have that tragedy of the learning of that identity, right? But I just feel like there isn't that ownership of who Perez is in her last moments, right? And I feel like that's the biggest disservice you can have in this kind of movie that's trying to be important about not only trans issues, but like trying to be a commentary on Mexican culture in general, and really that stuff is really gross because like you open the movie with like a mariachi band covered in neon lights, right?
In the
And you're like,
ether.
Oh my god.
A mariachi band in the ether.
yeah, it's like they're in the Twilight Zone, and Rod Serling.
It's like Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's Dada, you know. Wow. But at the same time, it feels so insensitive. It feels so like it's this idea of making choices for choice's sake. It's being bold, having something to say, right? But nothing really to back it up. There's no coherent ideology. And I feel like that's exactly why it's such a popular movie with like Hollywood elites, you know? Like it gestures at saying something without actually saying anything. And people, you know, aesthetically agree, you know, Mexico deserves critical support with what's happening right now with Senor Trump, you know?
Senor Trump.
Just calling a spade, you know? And you know, there's also the trans... play it in full, let's go.
Oh, it's the full Spanish. It's the full Spanish version. I didn't realize.
If this was a video podcast, you'd see how enthusiastic my hips were just then. I was,
No lies were told.
oh, yeah, exactly. But when it comes to these bigger topics, right, there's no sensitivity. Last time I was on this podcast, we talked about it, I saw the TV glow, right? And I feel like the charting of Owen's character in that film, right, whether they identify of one gender or not by the end of the film, it's one soul going through this experience, right? And I feel like there's an inflection point in Emilia Perez's character. Emilia Perez is one character, the gang member is another, right? And they're going back and forth between each other, right? There are moments where like the old them comes out at times, right? I feel like that's bad representation. I feel like that's not humanizing that character, in my opinion.
No, it's treating like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's not good representation because it's trying to say that like that you're completely like absolved and a completely new person the instant you transition, and we don't see, even if we're to believe that Emilia Perez has completely changed and is such a good person, that we do not see the road that led her there. We jump ahead in time, and she's a philanthropist, and everyone loves her.
If the movie was about her, it would have started when she transitioned. We don't need all of the stuff at the beginning of the film, right? Like, there's literally nothing that we would have gained by having that stuff there.
No, yeah.
I know. And I know that we would have lost the incredible penis to vagina song, right? Like
We can't
that's
afford
like,
to lose that.
We can't.
that's like one of the only redeeming factors of this film.
Yeah.
But also there's nothing narrative that we gain from it beyond like if we were establishing Zoe Saldana's character as the protagonist, right? Like we give so much time to the film to setting up what her plight is, and then it just goes nowhere. And she's delivering the better performance. She's the only one who's actually like very expressive with her performance vocally, and she's matching
And physically.
this. Yeah, it's a very off-kilter mix of like tones and genres of music and lyrical content, right? Like it's asking a lot of a performer, and Saldana has always been a performer that's been like committed to the craft. She will show up and say, yes, I will do whatever, right? So it's not surprising that she's giving her all in this, even if the material's just kind of meh, right? And, you know, I know that we've all been like laughing at Emilia Perez award stuff, right? But I'm not so upset about Zoe Saldana winning awards, to be honest. I do actually like respect it when an actor can like be in a train wreck and still kind of come out unscathed. Sure. And I think that Saldana does that in this film. What do you guys think about her performance?
Like I said, I think her I like her physical performance and the dance numbers is one of like the more okay parts. At least like I can feel like the emotions in her expressions. I didn't find like I didn't find the overall performance to be that great, but I mean compared to like Selena Gomez and I didn't really find Carla Sofia Gascon's performance to be that great either. I've heard people trying to
Oh yeah.
sort of say like that was like more of a bright spot in the film.
No, she was never a good performance in my books. Like she's not, again, her character doesn't really have anything to do, right? And then her performance, right? She doesn't really add much presence to it. She kind of becomes wallpaper for a lot of the film. So aside from any controversy that I'm sure we could talk about,
That's so funny too, because there is just so much boiling around like the outskirts of this film, but like you don't even like the film is so bad on its own merit. Like I'm glad we sort of talked about the film before we talk about anything in the meta, because I mean holy shit, it's such a mess.
Before we even get into the controversy thing, right, I just wanted to end it off with something I've said before about this movie, right? Like, I truly believe that this is like the Sia... You remember when Sia directed a movie called Sia's Music, right?
With the little girl from Dance Moms?
Yeah, and it was about autism. Yeah. Like, Emilia Perez does for trans rights what that movie did for autism, right? Like, it's...
Absolutely.
It's of the same, like, approach with kindness and empathy, but informed with ignorance, right? And you can feel it in every sense of the film's bones. And the only things that you can really point to that are positives are like on a craft level, right? And even then you're being charitable.
Mm-hmm. And what's so funny, both movies are so ableist and transphobic respectively in their presentations of these people, that but they also use like that as like a deflection when they're receiving backlash, like you're being transphobic or ableist for talking shit about this movie. I think
it always comes back to like, you know, who has backing, right? Because like Perez is getting its love because of its like conversation surrounding trans topics, right? Clearly, the more empathetic film that came out last year was I Saw the TV Glove, and if the Academy was worth a damn, it would be nominated for Best Picture. Like, just simply put, it was one of the best movies released last year. Yeah, in my opinion. But anyways, when it comes to you know, trying to tackle these subjects, you know, there is that intention of being good, but it's coming from all of the wrong places. It just doesn't have the right vocabulary to approach these topics. And in the process, it just feels like it's for people who are still kind of bigoted, right? It feels like it's for people who still don't see like trans women as women, you know, and like it's something that they can vicariously watch and be like, oh, I watched something progressive, pat myself on the back, right?
100%.
It doesn't actually delve into like any kind of real struggles. It feels very counterfeit, is the way I describe it. Yeah. And then when you actually like hear the people talking about the film, the people who made the film, like what they've said and what's been unearthed about it, right? Like the director of the film, right? Didn't he say like Mexican culture was like of lower income quality, right?
Yeah. He said it was just like a lower grade society, and Spanish was a more modest language.
Yeah, what a crock of shit. What a piece of shit that guy is. Like, seriously, right? Like, to have the gall to try to make a film that's about like issues in Mexican culture, right? And you can't even like afford like full humanity for those people, right? You're a charlatan. You're an idiot, right? You're a fraud.
Very much wanting the credit of making a woke movie without like working with the actual like politics or just like reality of these characters at all. Yeah. And like you said, like it seems like a movie that someone who's still bigoted would enjoy and pat themselves on the back. Like the fact that like they sort of like they almost like mythologize transness.
Yeah.
With like, you know, the fact that they're just like, yeah, you become a completely different person when you transition. And like I already said, like she doesn't do anything to rectify. We don't like, obviously she does things to rectify her past with the NGO, but like we don't see her like actually like wrestle with like her own personal turmoil with that. And I also think it was just so funny, like this former cartel boss saying, we have to do something about all the people the cartel is disappearing in Mexico. Like, that's not good what these people are doing. It's like literally one for one, like after the United Healthcare shooting, another healthcare CEO was like, we have to fix healthcare, guys.
You know,
Like, you are what's wrong with it. We don't want you in this conversation.
It is really funny that this film, which again, 13 Oscar nominations, right, is just an extended version of that Tim Robinson hot dog sketch, right? Someone's got to do something about this, you know?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Someone did this. We'll get to the bottom of this somehow, right? Like, and you know, I think that there is an interesting metaphor there, right? You know, the idea of transition and then trying to right your wrongs of your past via the metaphor of your past self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I just don't feel like the film sees like trans identity as one continuous life,
Mm-hmm.
but rather like two different entities.
Exactly.
Right? And the fact that Emilia Perez has moments where they're shifting from one person to another. It's very hollow. It's a rudimentary view of gender identity. And then I feel like we should talk about the lead actress in those resurfaced tweets, right?
Yeah.
Because surrounding this whole conversation about the film itself not being good representation, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is just like a nightmare. Has there ever been a PR disaster on this level before for the Oscars?
From the I can't think of anything personally. No.
Like like the best thing that's come from this is like I want to go to an Afro-Korean festival.
Woo!
I heard that and I was like, that sounds like fun.
Right?
Yeah. It just
Also,
it's
some good ass food.
great music, right?
Yeah.
It would just be a good time.
So we've got. Well, okay. I guess before we get into the tweets, Sarah, did you have anything else to add to the movie discussion portion?
I lost it.
You lost it. Okay.
Fuck. I literally just took a dab. Oh!
This is what happens. This is your brain on Emilia Perez.
Yeah, no, actually, it really is.
Yeah. You just got to take a dab straight to the face. Ease the pain.
You got to wipe it completely.
I mean, you didn't cover everything pretty well. I
think me and Sarah talked about how like there are like small aspects of this movie where you could see a better story, and I feel like like there's so many things that this movie needlessly does. It's needlessly a musical. The cartel aspects are also pretty like ancillary, but I feel like the better parts of the movie are when Emilia is trying to reconnect with her family, and I don't understand why that was not the main focus.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
I think there could have been like she could have, her and her wife could have re-fallen in love. Like
I was honestly like, the fact that Selena Gomez plays her wife, I expected her to actually be a wife in the movie. Like I didn't realize, okay, no, she's just an estranged wife.
And
who thinks her husband
like a mom.
Who thinks her husband's dead.
What was that, Tony?
She barely feels like a mom as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, she immediately lets Emilia take over and then sort of is surprised when Emilia feels any sort of kinship with her kids. She's basically been taken over for raising them.
And I also really wanted the kids to find out as well, especially because like they knew without realizing that they knew. At least the daughter.
Really, just
That
they
song.
couldn't. Yeah, you smell like Papa.
Yeah, which was also just weird in general, but like most of the music in this movie. But
That felt like I knew I was off the rails at that moment, but when that song started, I was just like, "Oh my god, this, like, this is like a dumb person's idea of sentimental."
yeah,
But yeah, those were where the movie at least like had the most like potential, I guess. So these tweets, I think, range from like 2020, maybe 2019 to 2022 or something like that. We've got, sorry, is it just my impression, or are there more and more Muslims in Spain? Every time I go to pick up my daughter from school, there are more women in the hair. There are more women with their hair covered and their skirts down to their heels. Maybe next year instead of English, we'll have to teach Arabic and a lamb. I think what's the funny conceit about that text is like you're already, English is a different language than your native language is already dominating your culture, and you're worried about a different language dominating your culture.
Well, like it's bigoted ideology, right? Like in itself, right? There is no logical explanation for it, right? That's what makes it so stupid, right? When you hear these talking points, right? They're inherently false, and like you can tell because there's tangible like reality to what they're talking about, right? And you can just like research it, and you can see that what they're saying is just baloney, right? So that part is already just out the window, right? And it's just straight up racist, right? It's just racist language constantly throughout their tweets over and over again, right? And I feel like, Hollywood is not averse to working with problematic people whatsoever, right? Like, but you're just, I'm just shocked that they didn't delete these tweets, right? They were just up on their Twitter for years, right? They were
Just sitting there
nominated
waiting
for
to be
Oscar,
found, yeah.
right? Yeah, they just left them there, right? Like, what are you doing, right? And like, she wrote those tweets. She must have known that somebody was going to say something about them, right? And in all of those times, like, she had nothing to say for it when they went after her, right? And she just like played the victim the entire time, right? Now she has to be left out of the awards for your consideration press tour, right? The protagonist of the film in the quotation marks, right? Even though like Zoe Saldana is clearly like the centerpiece of like what they're trying to market this film on, right? So like I feel like all of the chances for awards have gone out the window at this point. And everything that it was trying to represent, it just kind of became like a middle finger to, unfortunately.
All the tweets that I used to say, all the things that are in the way, all the TV shows have gone out the window. Yeah, it's I don't know, the fact that like she tried to act like they were like these age old tweets from like her youth, and I mean we've lived in the tweets getting dug up whatever cycle for over a decade now. I don't understand how anyone that isn't just a regular like average Joe, like anyone with any sort of platform, I don't understand how you're still doing this shit.
Yeah, like I don't understand what would have been so wrong in just like taking accountability and promising to do better, and not in just like a fake way, right? But just in like action, right? If that was her response immediately, right? Like people would have forgiven her, I'm sure, right? Like people have forgiven a lot worse for sure, right? At the same time, she said some pretty heinous shit, right? And pretty bold of her to like try to insinuate that like other Oscar nominees were trying to besmirch her campaign the day before,
or complaining about the fact that the Oscars is a ceremony for protest films. Like your film is trying its hardest to fit into that category, but falling on its face.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just it makes the whole experience feel really inadequate, and it feels like there is no accountability for a lack of understanding and a willingness to understand. And it's really sad. Really, is the main thing, right? That's always what this is, right? It's sad when you see people who just kind of give in to like ignorant hate that comes from somewhere that they were taught, right? They grew up and they learned this somewhere, and now they're repeating it because they're scared, right? And they're just idiots for saying it. And it's now ruining this whole film for everyone who worked on the film, right? Even though it sucks, the people on the production design team didn't ask for this, right? And now like everyone's gonna view this as like the Voldemort of the Oscar ceremony. But you know what? I want Conan to roast the shit out of this. I do want everyone to just like laugh at this movie because really it is a bad representation for everyone involved. And then the people who are behind it are even pretty bad people. So it's really hard to feel bad about anything really at the end of the day.
Truly. I mean, oh man, Selena Gomez was pissing me off the other day crying on Instagram.
I want to punch her in the face and also in the mouth. Actually,
there is something just so fucking pathetic about a billionaire crying on their Instagram story saying that they're complete. I'm just a helpless small bean. I don't know what to do.
My favorite is always going to be when Madonna was in that milk bath during COVID, where she was like, COVID, the great equalizer. Like she said something along those lines. And it's the same song and dance every time, right? Where it's like these people, they don't want to put their money where their mouth is, right? Like there are people who secretly donate to causes all the time who don't make their movements known, right? Those are good allies, right? Going on your Instagram live and being like and just crying, right? That helps no one.
Well,
right?
it's just so funny too because she has publicly refused to speak out for other movements. Like I know she got in hot water like during like 2017 and 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. Really? Yeah. She specifically said
she also refused to go speak on like the women's march. I remember back in like 2016.
What?
Yeah. It was crazy because she refused to say anything about that and then tweeted some shit about the March for Life. Mm-hmm. And everyone was like, okay, so you don't care about women, but you care about fucking fetuses. Fucking clump of cells.
And I think I'm very comfortable saying that after she lost 800,000 followers after last week. I think she will never speak out for anything as long as she lives again. Because I mean that's the whole reason that she didn't want to speak out for other things in the past was because she wanted to keep her brand safe. Mm-hmm. So
fuck your brand, bitch.
Celebrities, they get into this headspace, right, where they feel the need where they're like, oh, I gotta be well liked by everybody, right? And in order to be well liked, I gotta have the right opinions and the most empathetic opinions, right?
Or the most neutered opinions.
Yeah, because they can't actually do anything actionable, or else they believe they could become a target, right? Especially right now during this whole transition with the Trump period, right? Like a lot of these celebrities are afraid that they can become targets of political action, right?
Yeah.
So they're.
Yeah, go ahead.
You were saying?
Oh no, I was just saying like with everyone refusing to participate with Sebastian Stan and the Variety's Actors on Actors.
Exactly, right? Like there is now a distance, right, where people are unwilling to be specific with their issues, right? Being outspokenly political is becoming a dying thing in Hollywood. And Selena Gomez going on her Instagram and doing this, and all of those other instances you guys just said, reeks exactly of that, right? Where there's no specificity, And even if they did have a good take on it, right, they just don't seem to have like the appropriate vocabulary to convey their feelings in a effective way. And when I say vocabulary, I mean in an empathetic sense, not in like a she's dumb sense.
Say that again.
I was saying in vocabulary in an emotional sense, like, you know, like sometimes
I
you're,
like they didn't like they were not unable to like call upon the right emotions.
Exactly.
I
yes.
gotcha. Okay.
Just say toodle-doo to the village. Toodle